Hello, everybody. Andre Khatchaturian, Jason Takhtadjian, ASN Podcast. We are recording on June 17, Tuesday. We are approaching the summer solstice where the days are longer and everything is better, Jason.
I hope so. That's what I hope to think because, the weather is nice outside. And even though a lot of sports are wrapping up when it comes to the professional side of things, it does definitely seem like sports continues to heat up for Armenian sports, for Armenian athletes. And it's in multiple ways, whether they're friendly competitions, individual fighting, everything in between. And we're already, even though the summer is here and leagues are wrapping up, we're even looking forward to next season, too.
That's right. We are. I don't know if you hear this ship outside of my. Did you hear that?
I heard a bit of a like a humming from. I didn't know if it was
Yeah,
like a
that's
cat
it's
from.
a it's I we live right by the water here in Charlestown, Massachusetts, and you have trade ships, container ships passing by sometimes, and they make loud noises like that. But anyway, I wanted to ask you, Jason, how's your arm? You were out there at the Fresno Grizzlies game on Sunday, throwing out the first pitch, and it was the quite a horrendous pitch. But you're not going to be the next Roger Clemens or Tarek Skubal anytime soon. But I want to know
No.
how your arm is.
Well, a lot of people were looking at me like, dude, what's up? What's going on? I was prepared for throwing a first pitch for 60 feet. And when I got to the mound, I'm like, this isn't 60 feet. This is a lot shorter. It felt like it was a lot shorter. So I just sent it. I've never played baseball before. I never played organized baseball, not even Little League before.
It's
I
very
didn't even
apparent from
practice.
looking at that video that you haven't played baseball before.
No, obviously not. Obviously not. Definitely more of a soccer guy, but got up to the mound. Everyone was like, no pressure, go ahead and throw this first pitch. And man, when I tell you that the pitcher didn't even make an effort because of how high over his head the ball went, it was hilarious.
Well, I think it helped you that whoever was filming you that they did a terrible job filming you as well because you really
Hey,
see
you know
where
what?
the
It made it
ball
look
went.
like it was a decent pitch. That's
Yeah,
all I'm
so
saying.
because we put up a poll on ASN and most people thought it was an A pitch. So
Dude, my family was like, I'm so proud of you. I'm like, for what? They're like, awesome job. I wish I was there. I'm like, I'm glad you weren't.
well,
Like, through the first pitch, and I swear I can hear some boos coming down. And I'm like, oh, this is great. And then we
well,
end up staying for the game. The Grizzlies end up losing. So I don't know if they're going to ever have me come out anytime soon.
but you said that the Grizzlies have yet to supply you the actual footage of the pitch. We need to see that to see just how bad it was. Have you received that yet?
I haven't got the broadcast version yet, but once I have it, I'm sure we'll
Oh my
post it.
goodness!
We'll get
Oh,
it up.
you need to get that up. That was
Oh man, I'm just waiting for it. I'm at their mercy. They told me that they would send it somehow, some way. And I have a feeling it's probably going to get sent to like one of our managers, and then they're going to see it first, and they'll be like, Jason, this was terrible. What is this?
well. I've seen you play basketball, and we have somewhere in the ASN archives a picture of you, a video of you making a shot during a report. So
I'm 5'7" on a good day, so you know what? I'll take that. I'll take that at least. That we got a live shot bucket on TV, so we'll take that at least.
that's Jason Takhtadjian, your star Fresno pitcher and reporter. But let's move on to more pressing matters in Armenian sports.
Yes.
Speaking of basketball, we kind of want to put a bow on this. We haven't really talked about it on this podcast since the last time we recorded. Armenia basketball team defeated Costa Rica not once but twice in California last weekend, 2 weekends ago, I guess at this point. And you were there. You experienced it all. Let's just kind of talk about your experience there and what it meant to you to be able to be a part of a historic moment like that.
No, yeah, it was definitely awesome. Like you said, first game in Fresno was a 24-point win. The second game in LA was a 13-point win. And overall, it was really cool. Again, you have Costa Rica, 74th ranked in the world. Armenia last time the ranking was like 91 or 88. So still not that high yet compared to Costa Rica, but you know, it was a talk of the town for Fresno, for LA, and I was just, really honored to be part of the play-by-play call for the Fresno game because, that's part of the reason why I got into journalism in the first place is because of, my love for play-by-play and listening to calls for, World Cup matches, for example. And it was really cool to just get back into the broadcast booth and put the headset. Well, it wasn't a headset on, I'll be honest with you. It was just a microphone. And just, get into the broadcast booth with your notes and pen and do a call. It was really cool just to see, the whole process come together. And, once the game started and we started commentating, it just felt like I was back in college again because that's when I was doing UNLV play by play for men's and women's soccer and basketball on radio. And had a lot of really good memories, including doing some calls with some other fellow Armenian commentators too, David Stepanian. And, we were able to do the call in Fresno with Zendo Armanian, who ended up doing the call with Manu Kakopian in LA. And while we were in LA, I covered the game for Armenian Sports News and, met some really sweet people, some people that I was able to connect with on social media. One of note is Tony Marino. The kid's only like, what, 21, 22 years old, Armenian Italian from New York, and he's, becoming a world-renowned, singer and musician and sensation, and everybody was all over him. They were just absolutely just trying to get signatures, photographs, all this type of stuff from him before the game, during the game, after the game. And it was good that we have a relationship with him as well. He was able to chat with us after his halftime performance for ASN. That was really cool. I wish I had more time to get more people. I mean, literally, we didn't even have a chance to get guys like Jack Jr., for example. He was like, having a great time. But we did run into a footballing legend for Armenian sports, Yuda Movsisyan, second leading all-time scorer for Armenia. He was just chilling over there. He just pulled up, and I was like, "Wait a minute, you're Yuda, aren't you?" And he was able to give me an interview just right there before he was going to go to his seat. And really gracious guy, really cool guy, and he just, he made it abundantly clear to me that he's there to support all Armenian sports. So it's really cool for him to give Armenian sports news some time to chat. So in a nutshell, that's my Armenian basketball experience. I mean, they won the games. It was a lot of people that came into the games, especially the LA game. So many people in the LA game, they had to end up opening the doors and letting some cool air come into the game, into the stadium, and it was needed. And I think it was an experience that they can continue to build on. I do hope that next year we could see the Armenian basketball team play in a lot larger venues and a lot more organized and professional venues than high school gyms. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, and different places as well. Rex Kalamian, he's coming out to Boston and New York. That'll be
Right.
really cool. And yeah, it was good to see them win as well. And you know, and it's funny you mentioned play by play is why you got into sports. I got into this field because of play by play as well. I wanted to be a play by play guy, and in college at USC, I called USC baseball games, and then when I went for my master's at Boston University, I called BU hockey, BU basketball, BU soccer games, lacrosse games, field hockey games, anything. So that was a different lifetime, though, Jason. Different lifetime. Moving forward to the world of MMA, where the UFC has, if you're an Armenian, just unfollow UFC's Instagram account for the week because it's just honestly getting nauseating at this point, seeing all their posts in Azerbaijan. You have the three Azerbaijani UFC fighters posing with FC Qarabakh players. It's just unfollow it. It's just gonna make you upset, and I mean, it is what it is.
It is what it is, but this is also just a lesson for a lot of Armenian sports fans out there and, Armenians in general who aren't sports fans because, you can look at this and think, oh, the UFC supports killing Armenians and, getting rid of Artsakh and stuff like that, which is very easy to come to that conclusion whenever you see them just blindly promoting Azerbaijan. But we've talked about it on this podcast before, the $20 million site fee that the UFC basically has for just about any country that wants to host a UFC event. And unfortunately, in this situation, it was Azerbaijan that came up with the cash. And especially nowadays, when it comes to the UFC trying to find stars in their program, trying to find different ways to promote their program, different ways to make money. The fact that illegal streaming is such a big thing, companies like the UFC have no choice but to bend the knee to countries like Saudi Arabia, to the UAE, to Azerbaijan, because they have an abundance of money and they're willing to spend it. And this is a lesson on sports washing more than anything more specifically towards or against Armenians. It's more so about these countries and these governments having so much money that they want to use it in the sports, in the world of sports, to make them look good politically. So that's why I'm glad you said, unfollow them, remove it, because they're going to be posting photos with those Karabakh players. They're going to be making Azerbaijan look like it's such a beautiful and fun country. That's the whole point of sports washing, and that's the whole point of this sort of money going towards these countries. And quite honestly, when it comes to the UFC, once this event is over this coming weekend, I don't expect them to be licking Azerbaijan's ass anymore unless they go again to Azerbaijan in the future. And that's the hope. And that's the hope that I hold, is that we can see this event happen. We'll see what goes on, what's the positives, what's the negatives. And hopefully, I'm still holding hope, Andre, that Armenia will have a UFC event. It might take a lot longer than we're expecting just because of the money and the resources and the infrastructure required. But, you know, we've seen more impossible things happen. So
It's not just Azerbaijan. Let's be real as well. It's you touched on it, like other countries like Saudi Arabia and even the World Cup in Qatar. Now they want to go to Saudi Arabia. All these countries with checkered histories and pretty modern histories of being of doing some committing human rights violations and things of that nature, and all these countries are engaging in that sports washing. It's not just Azerbaijan. It's the common trend now. I mean, Azerbaijan hosts a F1 event as well, Formula One, and so does Saudi Arabia and all these other countries. So I don't know. It again. I don't feel like there's much to talk about. Nothing's going to change with us talking about it. I feel like people already know about it, and if they want to, be subjugated to that stuff, then they're gonna see it all week on the UFC pages on social media. But anyway, this past weekend in where was the fight? Atlanta, Georgia. They Edmund Shahbazyan was on the card, and he fought against Andre Petrovsky. A very impressive victory for Shahbazyan. When you think of Edmund Shahbazyan, you think of knockout wins, first round, see you later. But he really showed off his cardio in this one and went the distance with Petrovsky, a guy who, up and coming guy, and he defeated him via unanimous decision. His first time, Shahbazyan has won back-to-back fights now since 2021, when he was undefeated in the UFC, coming in with all that hype. And after that, he kind of went on a win one, lose one, win one, lose one type of pattern. But now he gets back-to-back wins and kind of positions himself again to maybe get a top 15 opponent next. He wasn't even win one, lose one, Jason. When he was 11-0 and he lost 3 straight fights. And then he went win one, lose one, win one, lose one. And then now he's won 2 straight. So he's 15-5 in the in MMA, not in the UFC, in total MMA professional career. And that was a pretty big win for him to kind of show that, hey, I can win if the fight goes a distance as well. Because I believe that's his first ever victory in the UFC by a decision. Everything else had been a knockout. So,
yeah, I mean, for the most part, that's true. And for me, what stands out is, we talked about it in the last podcast, Petrosky is a takedown artist, and he's always trying to look for the ground game. And I can just remember Shahbazian consistently defending that and, slipping out. And that was really vital. And that just kind of showed another element to Edmund's game, more of the defensive side rather than the offensive side that we've become so accustomed to. And yeah, like you said, when it comes to getting those top 15 ranked opponents and getting into the ranking, that was an important win for him to get the decision, but also to show off his defense.
Yeah, absolutely. And correct me, that was his second decision victory. His first decision win came in his UFC debut, which was the Ultimate Fighter card. He beat Darren Stewart by a split decision. But that was a long time ago at this point. That was 2018, 7 years ago. Since then, he hadn't won a decision victory. Everything was like a first round knockout or second round knockout. And it's good for him to show everyone that he can go the distance and dominate a fight the way he did. Because ultimately, when you go up the rankings, you got to show the world that you can win in more than just one way. Yeah, everybody already knows Edmund can win with a big knockout punch. Like that's what he is. That's what we saw him win. But we haven't seen him do this. And if you look at all the greats right now, who was it? The Georgian guy, name is slipping me. Merab. He showed that he could win in a 5-round match and dominate an opponent against Umar Nurmagomedov at UFC 311. He just dominated that match, suffocating. All of his wins were unanimous decision wins. But then he came out in this last UFC match, UFC 316 against Sean O'Malley, and showed he can. Well, he's not just a decision guy. He got a submission victory. So I think it's important for these guys to show that they can win in different ways, because that's what's going to ultimately dictate how successful they are in the future.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. I'm excited. I'm excited to see Edmund, kind of right the ship. I know that we were pretty critical, when we first started the podcast on Edmund, just because he wasn't able to get those wins, and it seemed pretty disappointing just when he would watch him and seem kind of helpless. I remember, I know Nazarene Imavov is a really really tough opponent, but I could just remember that image of him being helpless on the ground and us just being like, oh man, here we go again. But now it looks like Edmund, things have changed in his life. You talked about it. He's become a father recently. He's taken his training in Vegas more seriously now. And I think that's all kind of adding up to, translating to his discipline in the fights.
Yeah, absolutely. And you mentioned Imavov losing to him. And Anthony Hernandez as well. Yeah, those guys have established pretty good careers for themselves. But then losing to a guy like Gerald Mearshart in last summer, for example, those need to be wins. And I think he's showing that he's past that. He just seems more calm and more relaxed now when you talk to him in interviews. Maybe it's being a father now. He always talks about how he has that dad strength now. But he just seems more relaxed. He's been in this game now for more than 7 years. And he, don't forget, he's only 27 years old. So when he debuted in the UFC, he was only 20 years old. He was a child, Jason. So he's seen a lot now. He has a lot of experience, but he's still really young. So I think
he's
that's
3 months older than me. I just did the math.
Yeah. He's still very young. Months. It's kind of like Arman Tsarukyan, who is also pretty young. He's only like a year older than Shahbazian, and he announced on the comments section of an Instagram post with a Russian F1 driver. Tsarukyan posted a photo with him, and someone asked him, "When are you fighting?" or something like that, and he said, "I'll be the backup at UFC 317." So he kind of confirmed it that way. He had talked about being interested in being the backup before, but this is the first time he's said that, no, I'm the backup for this fight. So looks like we'll be seeing Tsarukyan in Las Vegas in a couple of weeks when Ilya Topuria and Charles Oliveira fight for the lightweight championship. He'll be the backup for that fight. Tsarukyan will, and we'll see. Maybe he steps in, and we've talked about this before, how it'll be poetic justice for him if he was able to save this card when he kind of ruined the card at UFC 311.
Andre, just imagine that for a second, though, right? Let's say, God willing, everything goes well. But in this instance, Imagine Oliveira gets hurt. Imagine something happens to Oliveira, and we have Ilia Topuria versus Arman Tsarukyan, two guys from Georgia, basically, to headline a Vegas card like that in summer. International Fight Week's coming up too, right? Oh my God. Uh, you tell me, how do you? Wouldn't that be insane? Wouldn't that be one of the biggest fights of the year for sure?
I think it'll be incredible. And I'm just looking at Charles Oliveira's history right now. This is a guy who has a history of missing weight. He missed weight at UFC 274 against Justin Gaethje and was stripped of the lightweight championship belt. In that fight, only Gaethje was eligible to win the title. I'm assuming if something like that happens this time, where he misses weight and there's a backup like Arman Tsarukyan ready to step in, they're not gonna make this a catchweight bout. They're gonna strip Oliveira the chance to even fight and give Tsarukyan the chance to fight, because that'll make it a legitimate championship fight. So we're looking at a guy here who, again, he missed weight in 2016 at a tough Latin America event against Ricardo Lamas. He missed weight in 2015 in the UFC Orlando event against Miles Jury. That turned into a catchweight bout. He missed weight in 2014 in an Ultimate Fighter bout against Jeremy Stevens. He missed weight at UFC 152 against Cub Swanson. This is a guy who has missed weight many times. So there's a chance that he misses weight again. I'm not saying it'll happen. Again, a lot of the times he missed weight were in 2014, 15, 16, but it happened again in 2022. So who knows? Maybe it happens again next week and Tsarukyan steps in. So if you're going to be a backup for a fight, this is a good time to be a backup, because this is a guy with a big history of missing weight.
Literally, this is how you redeem yourself if you're Arman Tsarukyan. It's almost a win-win situation, just showing that you're capable of being the backup, stepping up, being a company guy after how you started the year. And if you win and you beat Ilia Topuria, I mean, shoot, I think Dana White would kind of forgive certain things when it comes to Arman Tsarukyan. And who knows, maybe that could be a big time boost to the entire division, to the entire company. And then you have Topuria, who's now motivated to avenge that loss. You have, I don't know, I just see it becoming a big deal if Arman ends up being in that fight, especially fighting Topuria instead of fighting Oliveira again.
Topuria, speaking of which, also has missed weight in his career. It was not in the UFC. It was in Cage Warriors 94 against Brian Bouland. Missed weight and was not eligible to win the title for that specific card. So both these guys, Oliveira with more of an extensive history of missing weight. And I'm thinking, if I'm Dana White and one of these guys misses weight and Tsarukyan's there ready to go, then you have to go with him, right? Like, you can't I mean, I guess you could make it a catchweight bout and only one person's eligible for the belt, but why do that when you can have Tsarukyan waiting in the wings there? So something to think about going into next week. Speaking of combat sports, sticking on that theme, Gor Yeritsyan, he will be fighting this weekend in a, this guy, Gor Yeritsyan, has been around for quite a while in the boxing universe, and he's 30 years old. Big fight this weekend against Vernon Brown at Chumash Casino in California. So he's trying to build a 3-fight winning streak here. Only one loss in his career, and it was against an Armenian, Aram Amirkhanian, last year. Yeritsyan cut his right eye from an accidental headbutt in that fight, but he's won his last 2 fights since that bout, and trying to build on that. We will have coverage of that fight, powered by your favorite attorney, Nelson Gevorkian Esquire.
Yeah, I mean, I think you already mentioned it. Gor Yeritsyan is 20-1 in his career, and that one loss was to that Russian Armenian guy. And he felt really hard done about that loss. And I know that was almost like exactly a year at this point to go. But like you said, he came back with 2 big wins, 2 TKO wins, looking for a third in a row. And Gor is just I don't know. Every single time I watch him, it seems like he gets better in some regard. He's still only 30 years old still, so he still has, quite a few pretty prime years ahead of him when it comes to fighting. And, he's always been a good supporter of Armenian sports news as well. So we're hoping that he continues going forward and, can kind of reclaim, what he's lost when it comes to, the championships and belts.
Yeah, for sure. It'll be fun to watch him in action this Saturday. And it'll also be fun to watch legendary Armenian footballer Henrikh Mkhitaryan in action. Another just fresh off a crushing Champions League final defeat against PSG. Now he's back into big time international competition in the FIFA Club World Cup representing Inter Milan. We're recording this on Tuesday, June 17. This is the day that Inter Milan will begin its Club World Cup schedule, playing against Monterrey and the Rose Bowl in California. Sure, a lot of Armenians will head over to Pasadena to watch that match. See Mkhitaryan on U.S. soil playing in a very meaningful game for the first time ever. I don't know. You might answer that question better than me.
No, I have a feeling Mkhitaryan has played on the U.S. soil
Meaningful,
before.
meaningful game, not
Meaningful, yeah, because the Club World Cup, yeah, no, this is not only the first time the Club World Cup, I think, is back in the U.S. for a while. This is also the first time that it's a 32 team format, and they're treating it almost like a World Cup, actually, in and of itself. So, yeah, that's a good question. I'm sure some of our listeners can chime in on that. But when it comes to outside of like the International Champions Cup that used to be a big thing in the U.S., I don't think there's been any other meaningful games that Mkhitaryan has really played in when it comes to being on U.S. soil. So definitely a first for a lot of people. Inter are in a very easy group with Monterrey, River Plate, and Urawa Reds, which is from the J1 League in Japan. And I think it's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be a lot of fun. Some people have been real Debbie Downers about the Club World Cup, and either I think they don't actually like the sports in general or soccer, and it's just silly because their rationale is, oh, we already know who's going to win the Club World Cup. Oh, we already know these minnows are going to get destroyed. Well, okay, yeah, that's part of the game, but at the same time, we're here to watch these guys play because they're sending their best players still. I mean, we still have Inter Milan players from the Champions League lineup, starting 11, that are playing in this tournament, and it's a lot of fun. I would say it's a lot of fun just to kind of witness this all kind of come together. And we don't know how much more time Mkhitaryan has with both Inter Milan and when it comes to playing in general. So this is nice to experience him be part of this tournament because again, the future for him, I would say, is uncertain, especially after this upcoming season.
You mentioned it's a lot of fun. I agree with you. I mean, it's really popping off on the TV as well. A lot of these stadiums are being packed to the brim for some of these games, and I'm expecting bigger and bigger crowds as we head into the round of 16 and the quarterfinals. You have a chance here. Inter Milan, if they advance from this round, assuming they win the group like they're expected to, there's a chance here in the round of 16 they face a Brazilian team, Fluminense, or Borussia Dortmund in the round of 16. Those are big, high profile games. Like especially if they play Dortmund, that's like a Champions League style game that we're going to be seeing here played on U.S. soil.
Champions League style game, and it'll be against one of Mkhitaryan's old teams as well. You have added layer to that. I mean, that would be kind of poetic as well. And like you said, it's Champions League style game. I mean, these sort of games against the minnow teams, from a pure sports standpoint, why don't you love it? I mean, when do you ever get the chance to watch Inter Milan play a Japanese club? Like that's really cool, in
Yeah,
my opinion.
and
Just to see that. Okay, sure, it's 7-0 or it's 7-1. Like it's more than just the result. It's about the game itself, and I think. That's one thing that we're losing, and not to get too existential, but we have a lot of people who just watch the stat sheet rather than the games itself, and then they just think they know everything about the games, or they just think they know how the game went. Um, Watch the games, especially now. If you're in the U.S., DAZN is streaming these games for free, so um, I'm excited to see just kind of how the Club World Cup progresses.
Yeah, I mean, again, and that one game that you talked about, like people are gonna look at that Bayern Munich beating Auckland 10-0. But wait till we get to the round of 16 and quarterfinals. There's a chance that Inter Milan plays against Man City in the quarterfinals or Real Madrid in the quarterfinals. That's amazing television, and that's on 4th of July as well. That
Yeah.
match. So
I have to give Michael Olise a shout out on Bayern Munich because he was asked after that game against Auckland, do you feel bad about scoring 10 goals against the opponent? He's like, no.
yeah,
I love that. I love that. You shouldn't feel bad about your opponents. You don't have control over your opponent's, abilities or capabilities. Yeah, sportsmanship is one thing, but if you're playing in a competition and the playing field is level as far as you're both playing in the same, stadium, you're in the same tournament. Yeah, you play to win. You don't play to, make your opponent feel better about the fact that they suck.
you play to win the game.
Yes.
Herman Edwards.
There you go.
Moving along to club soccer now. FC Noah hit their opponent for the UEFA Champions League for next year. The 2025-26 cycle has been announced. They will be playing a Montenegrin team whose name I can't pronounce, and I won't try to pronounce.
I'll try.
Go ahead.
FC Buduknost Podgorica.
I'm pretty sure that's not how you say it, but
It's we'll have the Montenegrins comment on this
yeah,
podcast.
absolutely. So the FC Noah, they're continuing their quest in the Champions League. They made a pretty good run in the Conference League last year, making into the group phase, where
Great, great one.
getting there itself was a pretty cool accomplishment. Now they're going to try to do it in one level higher in the Champions League. So I'm excited to see how far they go, considering this team made some noise last year in the Conference League, and this is now their shot to show that, hey, we're going to do this on the next level. So we shall see, Jason.
I say this with all due respect, and I understand last year it was their Conference League, run, and it was historic. But I do hope that if FC Noah makes some noise in the Champions League qualifying, that it does get picked up by bigger media outlets out there for sure. Because last year, I wish Noah got a little bit more credit for doing something that had never been done before in the sport. So now they have a chance with the Champions League to make some noise that had never been made by an Armenian Premier League team before. Obviously, back in the 70s, you had some Soviet teams, Ararat Armenia or Ararat Yerevan going to the quarterfinals. But that doesn't really count in this sort of, scope of things, especially with the way things work nowadays. So if Noah goes on and beats these teams in the first few qualifying rounds and has a chance to make it to the group stage, they'd be the first Armenian Premier League team to make it to a Champions League group stage. And shoot, what better team than the team that already did it in the Conference League last season?
Yeah, and they were pretty dominant in the Armenian Premier League this year. FC Noah was only conceding 20 goals in the entire season in 30 matches played. So, again, it's only the Armenian Premier League, but you should.
Right, and there's a lot of international players, so it's like, how many of those players are gonna stay next season? That's when we start getting into the intricacies of
Yeah.
everything. As far as like, some of their top scorers and top players were some international guys, and are they gonna stay? Are some of their defenders gonna stay? Or are they going to start adding more because of all the success that they had this season? Are they going to start investing more in the international players? And that could be big. You can maybe start seeing some names that are more recognizable in the world of football coming to Armenia, which would be pretty cool. We have seen that already when it comes to some of the UEFA development, like guys like David Trezeguet and Nicholas Anelka coming. It'd be cool to see it with some Armenian Premier League teams too.
Well, again, I've always teased maybe Henrikh Mkhitaryan returns to the Armenian Premier League. That would be really cool, but
yeah,
won't be this cycle. Gonçalo Gregorio, Portuguese player, he was the leading scorer for FC Noah. It appears that he's still on the squad, so I guess that's their best player. 20 goals last year in the Armenian Premier League. But anyway, Jason, anything else you want to add to this wonderful podcast before we go?
Hey, you know what? If there's one message that I can add, it's not just for this podcast, but it's for all podcasts. Invest in Armenian sports. When it comes to seeing just where Armenian sports is going, both in the diaspora and, in Armenia proper, If we want to see more success, and I know this might not be easy for some people to hear, and easy for me to say, obviously, but if we want to see more success, we need more investment, and that includes investing in Armenian sports news to be able to bring stories that literally nobody else is bringing. And it's just you and I and a few interns, and yet we've done stuff that hundreds of people can't even rival. I'll be
Absolutely.
honest. So I think the more support that we get and the more people that have our back and more people that have the backs of Armenian athletes and Armenian sports in general, I genuinely believe that Armenia could be one of the top dogs in a lot of sports globally. And it just needs to have some collective effort. That's all.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And one thing I want to add before we leave is I want to give a shout out to the under 17 European wrestling team,
Oh
uh,
yeah.
especially the Greco-Roman side. Sorry, yes, the Greco-Roman side, winning 2 golds and 5 total medals, most overall in the under 17 European Wrestling Championship. Um, you know, they're kids, they're literally teenagers, and they are making headlines. It's going to be interesting to see. It's good to see that the future of Armenian wrestling is going to continue to be good in years to come. So, obviously a very rich history right now, and and in the past, and looks like the future as well. But that's all the time we have for you today. We'll be back again next time on the ASN podcast.